Okay, 7x squared equals 34x plus 5. This is question 4F. We're going to solve this by factoring. Now, it's a quadratic, and so the very first thing that I want to do with this is bring every term over to one side and set the quadratic equal to 0. Okay, eventually, solving a quadratic requires factoring, breaking this into two factors, and so on. I want it to be equal to 0 so that I can identify what those are. So the very first thing I got to do is bring those over. And I'm going to bring those over to whatever side of the equation, gives me a positive quadratic term there. So the 7x squared I want to be positive. Now I'm going to factor this by taking 7x squared, multiplying it by negative 5. And so what I'm looking for here are two values that multiply, whose product is negative 35x squared, and whose sum is that middle term, negative 34x. So I think, and I hum and I haw, and this is the hard part of factoring, but the two numbers I'm going to get here are going to be negative 35x and positive 1x. Now, it's really important that you pay close attention to the signs. The signs are really valuable here. One of the biggest mistakes that people make is they jump into it and they grab the two numbers, but they don't really consider which one might be positive, which one might be negative, and how that affects the outcome. Now remember, these two values are not necessarily the numbers that show up inside the binomial factors. Okay, what we've just found there are the outer product and the inner product. Now, the first two terms in each of these binomials, okay, are going to multiply together. Their product is going to be 7x squared. And then the outside terms here, their product's got to be negative 35. Remember that I'm going to just leave that negative with that back term here. I'm not going to bring that negative out front, okay? Don't want you doing that. It looks weird. It's a little bit harder to follow here. So the largest factor of both of those would be 7x. So if this is 7x, and I want the product of the first two to be 7x squared, I got to put another x over there. If this is 7x, and I want the outside product to be negative 35x, well, there's the x there, and then it's got to be 7 times negative 5. And if the inside product here has to be equal to 1x I should say, well, there's my x, which means I got to have a plus 1 over there. I'm not done yet, but what I'm going to do is erase those little bits of help that I gave myself. And I'm going to take each individual factor here and set them equal to 0, because if I've got two factors here whose product is equal to 0, that means one of them has to be 0. Okay? Could be either one, but one of them's got to go to 0 at any given time here. So for this first one here, if 7x plus 1 is 0, if I bring that 1 over, okay, that'll be negative 1. I would divide by 7. So my first factor would be negative 1/7. And the second term over here, the second expression, x minus 5 goes to 0. Well, bring the 5 over. That happens when x is equal to positive 5. And so my two solutions here are negative 1/7 and positive 5.